Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we have episode 3 of the Kirchhoff podcast, where I talk about all things that have to do with news, notes, fantasy implications when it comes to the NFL in the 2019 offseason. Primarily, my YouTube channel has to do with fantasy football, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I understand it's February 28th, 2019, but it's never too early to talk fantasy football, in my opinion, because there's a lot of news going around. Different players moving different places, guys coming out of retirement, trades, signings, stuff like that. And the draft that is soon to be upon us, the NFL draft. The combine is this weekend. So it's pretty exciting. Before we get into that, I just want to thank you all for continuing to support my channel, dropping them likes, commenting down below, and just watching my videos. Much appreciated. I understand as of right now there's not a lot of traffic because there's not a lot of information going around, but I'm still going to keep bringing out videos once a week. The Kirchhoff podcast will be a mainstay, and that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about some fantasy football. Timestamps will be below, so if you want to go ahead and specifically check out some stuff, go down to the description, and there will be timestamps. Okay, so let's talk about our first topic of today. It's Jason Witten coming out of retirement to rejoin the Dallas Cowboys. Man, when this news hit earlier today, I was pretty surprised myself. Here's the thing: Jason Witten, he's going to be 37 years old in May, and last season, when the season ended and he decided to retire, everybody thought, you know what, that makes sense. Tony Romo's gone, Witten will be gone, and the Cowboys will move on to their next step in trying to get as many young players as they possibly can, try to build this franchise for success. Now, the Dallas Cowboys this season, they found a lot of success, which a lot of people didn't expect. Now, that being said, the tight end position for the Dallas Cowboys was a little bit of a mess, to say the least. In order to fill in the shoes of Jason Witten, which he represented the tight end position and is a Hall of Fame tight end. He's going to go down as one of the best Cowboys of all time, one of the best players to play the position. So to fill his shoes, it's pretty difficult to do so. The Dallas Cowboys, they ended up filling up Jason Witten's position with 4 different tight ends this past season in 2018. They used Blake Jarwin, Jeff Swaim, Rico Gathers. They used Dalton Schultz. And those 4 tight ends, they all got some reps. None of them were able to separate from the pack, except for perhaps Blake Jarwin later on in the season. I think in week 17 of the regular season. Yeah, it took that long. He had a 3 receiving touchdown game against the Giants, in a game that really it had no implication on whether or not the Cowboys were going to make the playoffs. They had won the division, and they didn't have to play that game. So great. He scored a bunch of fantasy points in a week that many people don't play their championships in 17. Regardless, there wasn't really a tight end that stepped up and took the reins and was the number 1 tight end and was like, okay, he's established. He's going to be the guy for the entire season. It took way too long for Jarwin to go ahead and take that spot. Now, that being said, the 4 tight ends for the Dallas Cowboys this past season, they combined for a total of 68 receptions, 710 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Now, to be honest, that kind of looks like Jason Witten's average scoring pattern or statistical pattern for the last 4 years with the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, 2 years back in 2017, Jason Witten, had his worst statistical season, in which he had only like 500 receiving yards, like 60 some odd catches. And obviously the age was catching up to him, and the team wasn't really feeding him the ball as much as they used to because, he was slowing down. He's not as agile as he used to be. So here's the thing. Here's the way I see it. I know Jason Witten, he took a year off. He went to the ESPN booth to commentate Monday Night Football and to be an analyst. But we're not getting a Jason Witten back who's going to be 1,000-yard receiver. Yes, he may be one of the best players to play the tight end position in NFL history, but it doesn't mean that's what we're going to get. I expect to get a 37-year-old Jason Witten. Yes, he had a year off to heal his body in order to take care of himself, and he believes he's confident enough that he can come back and play in this league. I'm sure he can play in this league. He can play for the Dallas Cowboys. He's probably with the experience he has in the leadership aspect, he's going to be an improvement on this team. But for him, fantasy-wise, as a singular player, as a tight end, going into the 2019 fantasy football season, I don't see much value. You know, a guy like Jason Witten, all right, I expect him, perhaps, let's say best case scenario, he has 550 receiving yards and 3 to 4 touchdowns. That doesn't even account for 10 points a week at the tight end position. You know, a guy like Trey Burton this past year had similar statistics to what I just said, right? 550 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. That's about 120 fantasy points in a half-point PPR scoring format, and that's like 7 points a week, right? Okay, statistically, that's great because the tight end position has not looked good, right? I mean, the last couple of years, the tight end position has been extremely bleak. It's been hard to find guys on the waiver wire to fill in for the bums that we have at the tight end position. You know, this past season, unless you had one of the top 4 to 5 guys, whether it's Kelce, Ertz, Kittle, Ebron, or Jared Cook, you really didn't have a great tight end unless you got lucky, unless they scored a touchdown. I think Austin Hooper was next best after that. There wasn't much great tight end play. Now, that being said, Jason Witten, he's going to come in. He's going to be the number 1 tight end. So at least we know, okay, we don't have to guess on who's going to get the ball at the tight end position for the Cowboys. We know that it's going to be Jason Witten. Okay, that is a given. Now, the real question is he even a top 12 tight end this season? I personally don't even think so. If at any point, okay, Jason Witten becomes a number 1 tight end, I will be surprised. Because with the return of O.J. Howard, who got injured midway through the season, who was looking like a top 5 tight end himself, he's going to go pick up where he left off. Okay, after he comes back from his injury. I know Cameron Brate is still on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but O.J. Howard was dominating at the tight end position, and he was fantastic. So as soon as he comes back from injury, perfect. There's another tight end 1. Then you have the return of Delanie Walker, who is a guy that's 800 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns per season since Mariota has gotten to the Tennessee Titans. He is consistently 60 plus receptions, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. That is what Delanie Walker has been capable of doing with Marcus Mariota. And I understand he is an older tight end himself, but he's going to consistently get those targets because of how that offense is run with a heavy run, play action to the tight end, and bigger targets. Another guy that's coming back from injury, Hunter Henry. Now, obviously, the Chargers tried to replace him with old Antonio Gates. Doesn't really work. Hunter Henry is going to make a big splash in fantasy. So there are more tight ends just than Jason Witten coming back this season that we need to pay attention to. And I think of the 4 guys that I mentioned, Witten, Delanie Walker, O.J. Howard, and Hunter Henry, I think Jason Witten's probably the worst option comparatively to all those guys. Now, fantasy-wise, I may not have much faith in him. I think guys like Jimmy Graham, who didn't have a good year last year, he could potentially outplay Witten. It only takes a couple touchdowns here and there. You need to be a red zone threat as a tight end in order to have fantasy value. That's what Eric Ebron was. Now, there are other guys like Kelce, Ertz, and Kittle that are just receiving monsters. Those guys, they're out of the norm. They are practically wide receivers. They're tight ends, but with a wide receiver body and a wide receiver's potential because of how much targets and opportunity they are getting on a weekly basis. They are a main part of that offense. So what I'm saying is, as of right now, Witten doesn't have much value. Now, what value he presents is improving the offense that surrounds him. Okay, he is a good blocking tight end, and I'm damn sure he is a better blocking tight end than Jarwin, Swaim, Gathers, and Schultz. I can guarantee you he is a better blocking tight end. So what does that help? That helps the offensive line, and it helps Ezekiel Elliott. Great. That is exactly what we want. Ezekiel Elliott gets a boost. All right, who else gets a boost? Dak Prescott, of course, because Jason Witten is going to be that safety blanket, right? He is a guaranteed couple receptions here and there, and especially on third downs where Cole Beasley was usually especially this past season, the guy that, okay, I got to find Beasley. It's going to be Jason Witten. He's going to have to go back to him So where is that going to help? It's going to help the offense of this team move. It's going to help Dak Prescott. Where else does it help? Okay, potentially it could help Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup on the outsides in the idea that, okay, if Jason Witten becomes a viable threat, teams are going to have to cover him. But he's 37 years old. I'm pretty sure people can keep up with him, yet he's got moves still. He's got moves. He catches the ball. As soon as he catches the ball, especially the last time I saw Jason Witten play, catches the ball, falls on the floor. That's what he does, right? Because, he doesn't have his legs. Not anymore. I mean, sure, he can still run, he can still move, but his legs are not as fresh as they used to be, especially when the season progresses and you're in the late stages of the season, week 16, 17, 18. It starts to take its toll. So anyway, obviously, I think the tight end position, yes, it's bleak. The addition of Jason Witten could be seen as something of value, but I think he's going to help Zeke. I think he's going to help Dak Prescott's fantasy stock. And I think the tight end position as a whole, yes, it's a mess, but there are other names that we should watch out for rather than just getting excited about Jason Witten coming back. So those are my thoughts on Jason Witten going into this 2019 season. Obviously, my thoughts could change. He could just show up just to be a on the team coach, literally, because during his little stint as an ESPN analyst, obviously he found time. This is what I'm trying to say. He sat there for a good 16, 17 weeks. He was on Monday Night Football every week, and he fell back in love with the game. He decided, wow, the tight ends of the Cowboys are really bad, and I think I could still play. And that's what's going to happen. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, let's move on to the next subject. Let's talk about Nick Foles. Now, the important news that came out of Philadelphia this week is that the Philadelphia Eagles will not be using their franchise tag or their transition tag on Nick Foles, which is very important because as of right now, the franchise tag for a quarterback position, if I'm not mistaken, I looked at it the other day. I think it's like $25 million. So if you were to franchise tag a guy like Nick Foles this year, the Eagles would be missing out on $25 million just to dictate where he goes. They're not going to be doing that. He's Super Bowl MVP. He brought the Philadelphia Eagles a championship, and he even got them a playoff berth this past season, which was a surprise to many. So Nick Foles, he's done some favors for the Eagles. They're going to do him a favor back. They're not going to tag him, and they're going to let him go, and he's going to determine where he wants to play. Now, why I say it's Florida Foles is because everything is pointing towards the idea that Nick Foles ends up in Florida and playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, there's opportunities elsewhere. There are places like the Washington Redskins or perhaps the New York Giants, the Dolphins. There are other teams in the National Football League that perhaps need help with the quarterback position, but I don't think there are none more than, as of right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. this last season with Blake Bortles and Cody Kessler, that carousel, that was an absolute mess, and it proved to everyone that yes, you may have a very dominant defense. The Jacksonville defense is one of the best. Their secondary, besides a couple mistakes that they made in London, especially with those two guys starting that bar fight and all that garbage. They're a pretty good secondary. They're a pretty good defense. Okay, they can hold their own. They've got a lot of young talent on that defense that can make noise in the NFL, and we've seen them do so. Now, if the quarterback play in the offense cannot continuously get drives going, and they continuously come out with 3 and outs, boom, 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 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and the defense has to be on the field the entire game, especially in the division that they play in, the AFC South, against the Colts, against the Texans and the Titans, you're going to get beat up, and your defense is not going to be able to perform, and that's what happened this past season. So obviously they look to replace Bortles and Cody Kessler. Those two just were not great at all. They were terrible. Obviously not put into great positions to find success, because as soon as Cody Kessler got his opportunity, dude couldn't stop getting sacked. A lot had to do with the fact that he is an inexperienced quarterback, and all you have to do is blitz him and bring pressure, and it's going to make a big difference. Yes, teams keyed in on that, and it made a difference. But as of right now, Nick Foles seems to be the main guy that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to get after in free agency this offseason, excuse me. Obviously, they'll go and they'll look at the NFL draft, and perhaps they'll go draft a guy like Kyler Murray. You never know. There's a potential to that. But as of right now, if they want a short-term solution to fix their problem, if they believe that they're only one player away, a quarterback away from making the playoffs, because, again, they're 2 seasons 2 seasons ago, they were in the AFC Championship leading at halftime against the New England Patriots. Could have been in the Super Bowl that year, right? They're not too far off. Now, it may seem a little bit out of their reach due to this last season, but I still think they've got a lot of talent on that team in order to make some waves in the NFL. And perhaps Nick Foles is the way to approach that, that next level. If you want to be successful, you've got to have a quarterback that's going to lead you and get you there. Now, is Nick Foles the guy to do it? I don't know. If they can buy into the system of Nick Foles, if the defense, the running game, the tight ends, if they're all capable, the offensive coordinator is capable of surrounding Nick Foles in an offense that is going to find him some success, then sure, Nick Foles is the guy to do it, right? I mean, if anybody is counting out Nick Foles, I'm sure they're all wrong by now. So it's not crazy to say that there's a potential that he can show up in Jacksonville and turn this franchise around. Absolutely, especially once they cut Bortles, they cut Kessler, and they save a little bit of money that way. And then perhaps they can bring in some pieces to help this offense, because that's really where they're struggling. I know they were beat up a lot last season, but that was mainly because of the fact that they were 3-1, and then all of a sudden they were 3-13. They didn't win a game for a while there. And that hurts your ego, and that hurts a lot of your effort. You're not going to put in as much effort. You're not going to go in and try to, risk your body when you're not playing for anything. So, anyway, as of right now, Nick Foles to the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's a potential, I think, any day now. The deal will be done, and hopefully that's the case, so we get a little bit more fantasy value out of the Jaguars, because, the wide receivers for the Jaguars last season, I mean, besides early in the season where D.D. Westbrook had a little bit of value and Dante Moncrief here and there, there really isn't much value within this wide receiver core. And I think if you present and you bring a good quarterback in that can at least create a wide receiver one on this offense, at least open up more opportunity for Leonard Fournette and T.J. Yeldon to score more fantasy points, it only helps everyone. Really, it only helps. We want higher scoring games, we want more fantasy points, and we want more fantasy prospects, because when there's teams in the NFL like last year's Washington Redskins wide receiver core and the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver core that were just bleak and dead and were at best wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, it was pointless. Anyway, let's move on from Nick Foles. Until that is confirmed, it's just speculation, but a lot of people are talking about it. The Jacksonville Jaguars are already throwing out the idea of it, and I think it's to be an already done deal. Within the next week, perhaps 2 weeks, they'll get that all settled before the draft, unless they maybe they want to move up with a trade here and there. But either way, Florida Foles, still a potential. Okay, anyway, let's move on to trade talk, the third subject on hand today. Okay, so here's the thing. There's a lot of news going around that is all speculatory, but the main things that I heard this week that kind of popped out to me. Number one, Jordan Howard, who's on your screen right now, right next to Trade Talk. Jordan Howard, running back for the Chicago Bears. His name has been thrown around the rumor mill as a guy that is available for trade. If teams want him, you just got to call the front office for the Chicago Bears, and boom, you can make your offer right then and there. So what does that exactly do? That already, because of the production that Tariq Cohen was capable of doing this past season, we were already kind of getting the feeling that, yeah, Jordan Howard's one step out of the door. And he continues to, not play well. He wasn't as dominant as he's been in the past. And obviously with the amount of carries he was continuously getting, that's getting split in half because of all the opportunity that Tariq Cohen is presenting in the passing game, third down work. And quite frankly, Tariq Cohen is more of a versatile running back. So as of right now, Jordan Howard, he is on the block, and chances are they're going to move Jordan Howard. Whether or not they get much value out of trading him, I think it's going to present a lot of value to Tariq Cohen, and it could potentially give Jordan Howard a little bit of a fresh start, but I don't know, just depending on where he lands. That was just a surprise to me. I love hearing that. I think that if Tariq Cohen could have the backfield all to himself and we can get a guy like Jordan Howard on a team that is in need of a running back, perhaps we get him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Perhaps he ends up with the Jets, the Houston Texans, a team that actually has some sort of an opportunity for him, because I think, Jordan Howard, he hasn't been given much opportunity in the passing game. I think, there are a couple opportunities he's had and he's dropped them literally. But I think if you can give Jordan Howard, at least 13 to 15 rushing attempts per game, you can get a good running back out of him. Now, if we're beyond that and he can no longer produce with 15 touches per game, then nobody's going to ask for him. He's going to probably be cut or not signed as soon as his contract expires, but we'll see what happens. Another thing that came up this week, John Ross, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, a guy that broke CJ2K Chris Johnson's 40-yard dash record a couple years back in the NFL Combine. He is up for trade. He's a guy out of Washington that in his first year in the NFL in 2017 was plagued with injuries, did not play at all. I think he caught one ball. I don't even know if he caught any balls in that year. He was just beat up the entire season and never got on the field. Now, that presented a lot of opportunity for Tyler Boyd, who stepped up this last season as well. So I think, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, they're going to be just fine. Tyler Eifert, Joe Mixon, that offense is going to be fine. Obviously, Andy Dalton's a little bit of a question mark on whether or not he shows up and is able to produce. But John Ross, he is on the trading block. I don't know. What team needs a receiver with 4.22 speed? I think any offense can take him. I feel like I'm just waiting for I'm waiting for like the New Orleans Saints or the New England Patriots to come and snag this guy. I'm just waiting for a good team to come and grab him and put him in a good offense, and where he doesn't have to, be an every down guy. He can come in on specific packages and be like a Ted Ginn, but a younger version, or be like a Brandon Cooks. I think that's probably where he fits best. I don't see him as a guy that's going to be able to every down work. Unless he's better than I think he is, and in that case, he could probably prove it. But until he does so, I'm just not convinced. A lot of his fantasy stats from this last season, it may look decent, but to be honest, the dude was catching one ball a week, and they happened to be touchdowns down on the goal line. I mean, when you're throwing the ball to a smaller receiver like John Ross in goal line scenarios, in the red zone, those are just toss-ups. So anyway, a lot of that obviously had to do with Tyler Boyd just being non-existent as soon as AJ Green was injured with that toe injury. And, Jeff Driscoll was the starting quarterback, and he had to find some sort of rapport with somebody, and it was with John Ross at the time. So either way, John Ross is on the trading block. The other guy that kind of popped out this week was Nelson Agholor. Now, here's the interesting thing. Why I thought it was interesting that Nelson Agholor was on the trading block is because he primarily worked in the slot for the Eagles in 2017. And here's the thing. They also traded for Golden Tate this past season. He is a free agent this season that can be signed. So if you're getting rid of Golden Tate and you're looking to trade away Nelson Agholor, who's going to play the slot receiver position? You obviously have Alshon Jeffrey on the outside. Jordan Matthews, okay, maybe. I mean, Jordan Matthews is not that great of a receiver. I don't see him as a great receiver. I mean, there's a reason why he was pretty much not signed. He was with the Eagles, traded to the Bills. Then he was cut from the Bills, signed with the Patriots, cut there, and then he was a free agent. All of a sudden, the Eagles were like, we need some depth. So Alshon Jeffrey's not coming back for a little bit. Let's get him. He ended up staying on the team, being somewhat relevant, not really. So looking to trade Nelson Agholor, a little bit weird for me, especially because of how good he is with Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz and him, especially in 2017, they really showed that they're a pretty good 1-2 punch themselves. So a little bit weird, but it is what it is. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of names thrown around. There's still the idea of where Antonio Brown still needs to be traded. Odell Beckham, that news is still swirling. Obviously, the the New York Giants have come out and publicly stated we wouldn't sign Odell Beckham to a contract unless we, the quote, I think something of the sort was, we wouldn't sign him to a contract if we were going to trade him anyway. Well, why not? Why not just sign him, keep him, and then dictate where he goes in order to get whatever value you want? I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But there's going to be a lot of moves made. I think everyone post the NFL draft, stuff will start moving around as well. I think free agency, as of right now, there's a couple good names out there, but nothing too big deal offensively that is going to make a huge difference. I think Golden Tate is probably the best wide receiver available. I think there's a couple running backs here and there that like Mark Ingram or Tevin Coleman that can opt out and sign with other teams. Quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater is available. So, Nick Foles, that's probably the best for sure quarterback on the free agent market as of right now. So there's a couple names here and there, nothing too major, but either way, that's why trades are being thrown around. They want young players and they want guys that have a lot of talent. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, let's get to the last topic on today's video. We're talking about the NFL Combine and what my opinions on the NFL Combine are, okay? So NFL Combine started today, and majority of what today was getting player measurables and a little bit of bench press. Now, here's the thing about the NFL Combine, okay? I have a specific opinion on this. I used to watch the NFL Combine, I think, yeah, it was like a yearly thing that I would sit down and I would watch the Combine, whether it was rewinds or I had to wake up super early. I used to watch it. Now, mainly I used to watch it because I used to like watching the offensive linemen because when I used to play football, just picking up a little bit of technique here and there, just watching, the professionals at it kind of gives me a little bit of an idea on where I needed to improve. But other than that, I have no interest in watching the NFL Combine. There's a lot of things going around in like the news cycle. Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback from Oklahoma. Is he big enough? Is he tall enough quarterback? How do his measurables stack? Blah, blah, blah. They're talking about his height being 5'10 and 5'10.1, okay? And how that's a big deal. What the hell difference does it make if he's a half inch? They were literally on ESPN earlier today determining, how big a difference is in half of inch. If he was a half of inch shorter or taller, what difference did it make? If he was 5'9", he would never be drafted. If he was 5'10 and a half, he'd be the number 1 overall pick. Now that he's 5'10.1, we don't know. What? His hand size, it's 9.5. Great, he can grip the damn ball. Okay, he's not going to fumble when he runs around. Right? Maybe he needs to tuck the ball in and he'll be just fine. Like the things that people are finding, the topics that they're bringing up when it comes to the Combine right now are absolutely ridiculous. Now, I understand the Combine has its value, right? There are players that are going to perform in the Combine and they're going to make names for themselves. Their names are going to move up draft boards. I understand that. But as of right now, I don't think that the NFL Combine is something that you can go into and jump full rounds. I don't see that being the case anymore, right? I think as of right now, college football is as competitive as it is. I think the tape that you put in on Saturdays in college football, that determines where and when you get drafted, right? Those are your tests. Yes, the Combine is a stress test, which can has these interviews and all this kind of garbage here and there. But I think the NFL Combine, rather than it bringing you in and you performing out of your mind, you're going to go up rounds. I think the thing is that the Combine is more likely to hurt you rather than help you nowadays. I feel like if you come into the NFL Combine and you perform well, we expect you to perform well. Great job. Next, right? But if you come in and you perform poorly, that's when it hurts you. I think the NFL Combine, even though a lot of people are, I guess they're promoted here and there. He broke this record. He did this. He did that. Your name is more cycled around. I think there's more room for it to hurt specific players. Now, when it comes to fantasy football, we're looking for offensive players, okay? If we go into an NFL Combine and we watch John Ross run a 4.22, okay, great. What has he done for the Bengals? In 2017, he didn't play at all. In 2018, the dude was was practically the wide receiver 3 or 4 at points. And now the trade talks are beginning, right? What did that 4.22 do for you? I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. Great, you're a fast receiver. It's not like we haven't seen that before. There needs to be more, versatile players. And I don't know if you're going to find that by just looking at intangibles when it comes to speed or cutting or doing the cone drill or doing the bench press. Great. I think the stat that I heard earlier today was a running back came up and did 36 reps on the 225 bench press today. 36 reps. What is that running back going to do with bench press? Okay. The motion of this, right? What is that going to do for him? Sure, he is strong as shit. Okay. He is one of the strongest running backs I've ever seen in my entire life. Watching this dude rep out 36 reps on the bench as a running back. That's fantastic. But what does that do for you? Is that going to move you up draft boards just because you're strong? I mean, that's definitely not the thing that I'm looking for when it comes to a running back. Nowadays, we need running backs that are versatile, that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Yes, they can run the ball. They can make cuts that are fine, whether they're out of the gun or 7 yards behind the quarterback who's under center, or they can still pass block. There's different things that on film, in my opinion, speak louder than the combine. So whether or not I'm going to be watching the combine this season, probably not. I feel like the combine is mainly for guys like offensive linemen, tight ends, defensive linemen, corners. Those are the guys that mainly will jump because of the combine, right? Because if you go and you look at an offensive or defensive lineman who's performed great in the Senior Bowl his entire senior year at Alabama or Florida, wherever the hell he played, right? If he's performed well throughout the season, he comes out and he runs a 4.8. Wow, okay, that offensive lineman is something special because not only does he put on the film, right? He can move. He's athletic. He's not just a big body that can pancake dudes. He's a guy that can move. That is important. Now, when you go and you watch a running back on film, you can see that he can move. You can see that he's strong because he's breaking people off tackles. We don't need him to get, underneath a bench press bar and push it up 30-some times for us to be told that. I don't know. I'm just ranting at this point because I don't know what it is about the combine. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't think it helps that much. I think, measurables, yes, they can determine here and there. Oh, your vertical jump was 40 or your broad jump was 12 feet. Okay, great. The great players are going to be great whether or not they test well, in my opinion. So as of right now, I think, what was the thing that a couple years back, like Vontaze Burfict, the Arizona linebacker who currently plays for the Bengals, obviously he's gotten himself in some trouble. He showed up to the NFL Combine, and the dude was awful. He ran like some of the worst times in linebacker history. He didn't perform well. Guess what? He wasn't drafted in the NFL draft, and then he ends up on the Bengals. He was an All-Pro, right? He has a job. Congratulations. The NFL Combine, obviously can hurt you more than it helps, but I don't think it's going to, determine, oh my God, this guy is the best wide receiver now because he's this much, he's 0.04 faster than the other wide receiver. I don't see that correlating at all. So anyway, if you guys like watching the combine, go for it. Let me know what you think about the combine or Jason Witten coming back, Florida Foles, Jordan Howard trade talks. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think. Not a lot to talk about. So besides me just ranting on the NFL Combine, I'll let it be there. I'll let it sit there as of right now. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Until next time, I don't know. I'll probably come up with a video within the next couple of days, probably talking about. I don't know what the topic will be. I've been throwing around some ideas here and there, but either way, probably going to be I don't know. I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes because I've heard people say, I'm going to draft him in the first round, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we got to relax on that. Okay, we need to understand why that's not the best choice, but it'll probably be Patrick Mahomes video, or I'll probably come up with something else. Either way, I've been working hard at these, at creating a draft kit for the 2019 season. Goodness gracious, it is a lot more work than I anticipated. So as soon as I start getting that a little bit more done, I'll kind of show you guys what I've got so that you guys kind of have an idea on where I'm building or what I'm trying to create. And then we'll talk about that, because obviously I'm going to be putting in a lot of work. Now, whether or not you guys want that, eventually the conversation on whether or not I make a Patreon and I put it up on there is going to be brought up. But either way, thank you everybody for watching. We'll talk about that stuff later. It's only March 1st, February 28th. So no big deal. We'll get to that later at some time. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. And if you haven't already, click that subscribe button, click that like button, click the bell notification button to get all my videos notified as soon as they come out. And until next time, I'll see you guys. All right, have a good one. Later.